Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another detailed forecast update coming your way. We're going to start things off talking about Tasmania and the southeast of Australia as a whole, with some severe weather blowing through there. We'll recap on some showers over Western Australia and forecast for some up in far north Queensland, and we will touch on the extreme heatwave developing across central and eastern Australia. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Your support is greatly appreciated. So start things off with a view of the southeast. You can see another cold front overnight blew through the southern parts of the nation, and you can see they've brought some pretty significant weather conditions to Tasmania. Currently, winds are sustained, averaging between 40 and 80 kilometres an hour across the state, with gusts up to 120 kilometres an hour. And from the front last night, we had peak wind gusts on that Cyclone Island approaching 140 kilometres an hour once again. Very significant wind gusts. It's not their final front either that's going to bring wind gusts of that magnitude. We're expecting more weather conditions and more cold fronts to bring severe weather to that magnitude over the coming couple of days, which we'll get to in just a second. Showers have also been prevalent across Victoria, some snow as well across the highlands, with more of that on the way as well, and showers are still continuing to spread themselves through Tasmania. A lot of stations last night picked up wind gusts in excess of 90 kilometres an hour, especially on the west coast and through the central highlands, and a lot of places have already picked up over 150 millimetres of rainfall over the last few days of severe weather, with, again, much more on the way. We'll talk about the rainfall right now before touching on that wind threat. You can see here, in terms of rainfall over the next 24 hours, there isn't an awful lot expected. In fact, over the next 24 hours, the rainfall will actually be dying down, with it kind of getting to about a bottom at around 6 or 7 p.m. tonight before it once again picks up with a passage of another very strong cold front that's going to sweep up from the south later tonight into early tomorrow morning. And for severe weather lovers, if you want to wake up at about 2 or 3 a.m., in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of the west coast was woken up at about 2 or 3 a.m. tomorrow with the passage of this very powerful severe front that's going to come through. You're going to be in for some damaging winds, some very heavy rainfall by the looks of things as well, from very fast moving showers. They'll be screaming through at about 150 kilometres an hour in a westerly direction. Very significant weather indeed expected. And snow across much of the highlands, in fact, down to some of the lower elevations as well by early tomorrow morning, where you could be seeing snow flurries as low down as about 600 or 700 metres, especially across some of the highland sectors of Tasmania. Temperatures as well will be very cold across much of the state, so again, make sure you are rugged up for tomorrow morning. But yeah, this cold front really does look quite significant. It's likely to bring a further 30 to 40 millimetres for some places, especially in the mountainous areas and along the west coast. In terms of wind gusts as well, I'm expecting wind gusts, especially in the northwest, to be in excess of 120 kilometres an hour. In fact, probably a little bit stronger as well early tomorrow morning. Right through the Bass Strait, we're expecting some very significant wind gusts, and a few hours behind it, those waves will really pick up. I mean, look at these wave heights here through early tomorrow morning. It's going to make for a very unpleasant ride on the Spirit of Tasmania, whichever way that is headed. But if it is close to Devonport by early Saturday morning, the severe weather, it should be out of the way of it. But we're talking about wave heights between 5 and 8 metres for parts of the Bass Strait. Very significant wave heights indeed. This is a severe front if I've ever seen one. And unfortunately, it's not the strongest one on the forecast for Tasmania now. I mean, we're going to play this forecast run through a little bit further. You can see the rain and snow continuing through central Tasmania throughout Saturday. Another cold front moving through Saturday night. This one's going to be especially strong as well, and then we've got another just series of severe weather that's going to be belting the state right through the course of Sunday afternoon through to Sunday evening, which is when one of the strongest cold fronts of the year is expected to batter Tasmania. I mean, take a look at the winds here. We're talking about sustained winds of around 120 kilometres an hour. Oh, hang on, no, sorry, that's wind gusts. Winds sustained between 50 and 80 kilometres an hour, sustained up to 120, maybe even 130 kilometres an hour gusts in some places. This cold front will be very, very strong indeed through Sunday evening and into early Monday morning, with some massive wind gusts expected across the northwest and the north of the state into the Bass Strait as well. And these very strong wind gusts will continue into early Monday morning as well, up to 130 kilometres an hour in the Bass Strait, and wind gusts in excess of 110 kilometres an hour over the highlands in Victoria. Wind gusts averaging above 90 kilometres an hour as well for about 90% of Victoria and for much of northern Tasmania. In fact, the only spot that's kind of excluded from these massive wind gusts Monday morning is the areas around Hobart. It will be slightly calmer there, with the low pressure area actually expected to move straight over the top of Tasmania. A very intense low pressure system at that, and some pretty significant rainfall totals are expected. Now, in the wake of this system, for the first time in about a week, the winds are going to swing out from the southwest. And for anyone that knows a little bit about how weather works down there, when the winds come from the southwest, and in fact, the winds from the southwest for much of the southern states of Australia, it means that the severe weather threat is dying off. And you can see the rainfall, storms, and snowfall do ease out over the course of Monday and then into Tuesday as a high pressure ridge builds over the top of Victoria and New South Wales. And that brings a return to some cooler, calmer, drier conditions over Tasmania, only temporarily, however, with more cold fronts expected to move through Thursday, Friday, and next Saturday night. Again, these won't be as severe as the cold fronts that we have seen over the past week, but there is still more winter weather on the way for them. It is still their winter season, and it'll be a couple of months until the winter weather fully clears out of Tasmania, but the severe weather certainly looks like it's got just a few more days left, and it's going to take until about Monday afternoon, Monday evening, for the severe weather threat to totally pass in Tasmania. But this severe weather system that's going to be moving through, in fact, the three cold fronts that we've got tonight, Saturday night and then Sunday night, they look very, very significant indeed. Now let's talk about rainfall accumulations. Let's break them down day by day. That's another very important factor on the forecast. Throughout the course of today, we're expecting a further 40 to 50 millimetres to fall across the high country in Tasmania. About 30 millimetres along the west coast, and some decent accumulations as well across the northeastern national park. Launceston expecting about 15 millimetres. Hobart expecting about 15 millimetres from showers as well. Tomorrow, with the passage of another cold front, we're going to be seeing some significant rainfall accumulations as well. Like I said, between 40 and 50 millimetres of some locations, especially in the southwest wilderness around Strathgordon and the Gordon and Huon River catchment area. We're going to be seeing some pretty significant accumulations there. Between 20 and 40 millimetres expected for some of the western coast communities, about 10 millimetres for both Launceston and Hobart, and a little bit more rainfall into the northeast of the state as well. Some decent falls expected on Sunday with the passage of that really strong cold front that's going to be moving through. Between 50 and 60 millimetres will sort of be the most amount of rainfall, and the vast majority of the state picking up at least 25 millimetres on Sunday, with the only exception being Hobart, which kind of only gets about 10 to 15 millimetres from pretty consistent rainfall by the looks of things down there, but some good falls across much of the state there. Monday, the rainfall will begin to ease off, and you can see it's really contracting to the west coast at this time. You can see accumulations still between sort of 20 and 40 millimetres for parts of the west coast, especially around Strathgordon and the Gordon Dam area. Some heavy falls are expected across there, but the rainfall really does look to ease off throughout the course of Monday and Tuesday. In stark contrast to the last week or so, it looks like it is going to be dry for the first time in quite a while for much of Tasmania. Now, rainfall accumulations to really send off this front over the next 4 days, they're still sky high across central parts of Tasmania, between 100 and 150 millimetres for a big swathe of the southwest wilderness around Strathgordon, and between 100 and 140 millimetres for areas around Queenstown and Mount Reid. Now, around the Lake St Clair National Park and around Cradle Mountain, that sort of area, I expect some areas to pick up and a further 200 millimetres over the next 4 days. I'd not be surprised if that number as well was also breached. I just think that 150 millimetres from the setup that we have over the coming couple of days is a little bit conservative for Tasmania, especially some of the more mountainous areas around Tasmania. I feel like that is a conservative forecast. Also considering that Tasmania rainfall accumulations can just naturally blow out compared to the forecast. I think the Access G3 has also done a pretty good job with the forecast. They are calling for much more rainfall across the central parts of the state, around 2 to 220 millimetres of rainfall, and then up in the Ben Lomond National Park and further 180 millimetres or so. So some good accumulations expected out there. But I think that with just the setup that we've got over the coming couple of days, I think that rainfall here might be a little bit on the underestimated side. And the only reason that I'm 80% sure as opposed to 100% sure of that is just because of the wind threat. Considering how fast these fronts are going to be moving through, I think that might be why the rainfall is a little bit conservative. But just take a look at the wind accumulation map. Now, this is the highest wind gust expected over the next 4 days. Take a look at some of these numbers here. 140 kilometres an hour seems to be pretty widespread. Along the west coast, it's closer to about 130 kilometres an hour. I reckon some of the high peaks will pick up wind gusts in excess of 150 kilometres an hour. I think that just goes without saying. Gaffs Hill has been blowing its guts out as well. Just outside of Oatlands and north of Hobart, about an hour north of Hobart, they've been receiving some insane wind gusts down there. Mount Cyclone Island, Australia's windiest place as well. I'm expecting some big wind gusts, some big numbers down there. I would not be surprised if numbers started going into the 100-mile-an-hour threshold there. Certainly going to get quite windy, that's for sure. But I mean, where these fronts are going to be tracking through, just take a look at these numbers here. Not too far south of Tasmania as well, 150 to 180 kilometres an hour even. Very significant wind gusts and totally plausible as well. We can't be neglecting Victoria as well. I mean, take a look at this. Their southern coast will be receiving wind gusts in excess of 110 kilometres an hour as well, with destructive wind gusts possible around Wilson's Promontory and, of course, across the islands of the Bass Strait. Melbourne and the metro areas around Melbourne expecting wind gusts between 80 and 100 kilometres an hour. Some of the southern suburbs might pick up wind gusts slightly stronger, and some big wind gusts also possible across the mountainous areas of Victoria and into New South Wales as well, with blizzard conditions possible on Sunday night and into early Monday morning, I believe. Yeah, take a look at this. It looks like with the passage of this front, we could be seeing blizzard conditions early Monday morning across Victoria and New South Wales, which is something I'd also just like to talk about for a few seconds right now, is the snowfall accumulation between Sunday and Wednesday next week. There are some decent numbers expected across the high peaks. There's certainly an increase from yesterday, that's for sure. I mean, take a look at this. We're expecting accumulations between 10 and 20 centimetres now, as opposed to 5 to 10 centimetres. So some decent accumulations are possible, but I think they will be reserved for the highest of locations of at least sort of 11 or 1200 metres up. I think that the lower areas of around 600 or 700 metres, which can sometimes receive snow around Victoria and New South Wales, I don't think they'll be getting anything from this weather event at all. And I think once you get outside of the sort of the Kosciuszko National Park, the snowfall accumulations will be minimal across New South Wales. But yeah, that basically does it for a talk on this severe weather system. If I've left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. It is a very complicated forecast, this one. There's a lot of moving parts to it. It was a difficult one to make. So again, if I have left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, let's now talk about the heat wave to warm everyone up across Central Australia before we talk about some rainfall across other parts of the nation. We do have extreme heat developing across parts of Central Australia, and that's typical for this time of the year, and it has been building for the last week or so. But along some low pressure troughs and in the headway of a front that's moving through South Australia and into Queensland and New South Wales, now bringing little to no rainfall and just a little bit of cloud, temperatures are soaring. You can see Birdsville already at 33 degrees now, and it's before midday, so very warm indeed, especially for this time of the year, with temperatures expected to rise to 36 or 37 throughout the course of today. In fact, potentially a little bit warmer into the Northern Territory, where they could tickle 40 degrees later this afternoon. Very warm indeed through there. Warm as well across New South Wales, especially along the east coast. You can see temperatures soaring into the high 20s and early 30s for parts of the northeast, and these temperatures are going to remain pretty warm as well. We'll cover Queensland and New South Wales first before talking about the Northern Territory and Western Australia. It'll be slightly cooler tomorrow and slightly cooler again on Sunday. Temperatures still expected to go into the low 30s for some areas of northeast and New South Wales before they warm up again at next Sunday and Monday, where you can see temperatures into the low to very maybe the mid 30s even for parts of southeastern Queensland, especially into the western suburbs of Brisbane. We can be seeing 33 degrees Celsius or so. Much cooler on Tuesday, actually, with some southerly winds that are expected to bring a bit of a cool change in. Cooler again on Wednesday and Thursday before warming up once again on Friday for the weekend, where you can see temperatures soaring into the high 20s. Very warm for this time of the year, and temperatures remaining into the high 20s for Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So it looks like it's going to be a pleasant weekend. It's also going to be a pleasant weekend this weekend with temperatures into the low 30s, so definitely think about getting to the beach. The sea temperatures aren't actually that warm right now. However, it looks like they will be very quick to warm up across parts of southeastern Queensland, and I imagine the Sunshine State will be the place to swim, especially over the coming couple of months. Now for the Northern Territory and Western Australia, I wouldn't necessarily call this a heatwave forecast, considering this is only a couple of degrees above average, but we're still talking about temperatures into the early 40s over the coming couple of days. You can see temperatures today expected to get up towards 38 or 39 for Marble Bar and areas around Badgingarra and Roebuck. Temperatures as well into the low 40s expected on Saturday and Sunday outside of Fitzroy Crossing and Roebuck once again. Temperatures into the low 40s continue through Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday as well, and slightly cooler on Wednesday and Thursday, but with a building of a low pressure system across Central Australia, we're expecting temperatures to soar once again Friday and then Saturday next week into the high 30s or early 40s for parts of Western Australia. So very warm indeed. Typical for this time of the year, but still quite warm compared to the long-term average. We're talking about temperatures between 4 and 9 degrees Celsius above the long-term average, so I would definitely class this as some extreme heat. And the September record for Western Australia, I believe, for temperatures is 44 or 45 point something, and I don't think that record is a chance of being broken, not at least this week, but maybe later on in the month. We'll just have to wait and see with this warming trend that we're seeing across Central Australia. And before I finish off this video, we'll talk about some rainfall up in far north Queensland. You can see showers expected to continue throughout the course of today, a few light showers here and there, but nothing too crazy. crazy. Dry conditions on Saturday and Sunday, just a few showers here and there continuing through Monday before the rainfall pipes up again next Tuesday from an onshore flow. Again, nothing too heavy here, but for much of the Queensland coastline, right down to the central Queensland area of Mackay and Airlie Beach, we're expecting some decent falls around Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. We could be seeing up towards 25 millimetres of rainfall outside of Mackay around Yalburu on Wednesday. Some decent falls also expected up into the Cassowary coast on Wednesday and Thursday between 20 and 50 millimetres. And again, 20 to 50 millimetres possible on Thursday. In fact, I would not be surprised if one or two stations on Thursday to the 9 a.m. on Friday picked up above 150 millimetres of rainfall. It looks like this onshore flow here is really set up to drive some good showers ashore. And we know once they get into far north Queensland, especially into some of those valleys around Tully and Babinda, the rainfall accumulations can blow out very, very quickly. Rainfall continuing for Friday and Saturday as well, and I believe that we're going to be seeing some pretty big numbers here on the forecast in terms of rainfall accumulations between Tuesday and Sunday of next week. I mean, take a look at this. Some pretty big numbers here, up to 110 millimetres expected now outside of Fishery Falls, or between 80 and 100 millimetres or so. So some pretty significant accumulations are possible. Some decent falls also expected up into the Daintree. And I say this every single video, but for those that are new, rainfall accumulations, you can get away with doubling them and still have an accurate forecast for some of the higher peaks and more moist-filled valleys around sort of Innisfail and Tully. So when you double 85 millimetres, you get to 170. You could easily round that up to about 200 millimetres and still have a decent forecast for later next week. So some significant falls are certainly on the way, that's for sure. Good falls as well, like I said, outside of Yalburu and Mackay, between 20 and 50 millimetres possible out there. Nothing too crazy, but certainly some heavy rainfall for this time of the year and certainly something to be watching. In terms of rainfall across the other parts of Australia, there is a big swathe later on next week across Central Australia. I'm not sure how much weight to put onto this forecast here. It is very much later on in the forecast, sort of next weekend, and very little rainfall across the southwest of Western Australia as well. So it looks like summer is slowly starting to tickle its way in to the West Australian weather. Again, we will cover this big rainfall patch here in Central Australia in another video. That's certainly chat for another day. But apart from that, it looks like it's going to be high and dry across Central and Northern Australia, and some good rainfall continuing for Tasmania, Victoria, and parts of far north Queensland as well. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today. Thank you so much for watching the video to this point. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. I could not run this show without them. Their support is greatly appreciated. Any comments, questions, feedback, the like, please do leave it in the comment section down below. I'd love to get back to as many people as I can throughout the course of today. Again, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.